that the Hangout on there is live, and the Hangout on there is live. So now what? Well, this Get Ride app is a long-running code kata that I'm doing to build an app that's analogous to Uber or Lyft using functional programming techniques, specifically F#. In this exercise, or in this kata, I am exercising some concepts that I've learned inspired by domain-driven design, as well as type-driven development. Okay, so let's plug this thing or dock it back. That's not what I wanted. Put it back in here. Okay, so let me see if all my tests pass. And I should have one test that's being ignored, but everything else should pass. And 21 tests pass. One test is being ignored right now, and that is this payment transactions. Now, the last video that I did, I implemented this cancel pending ride results in cancellation fee transaction. Okay. And this was pretty much me adding a handler for pay for cancellation, or adding a handler for a cancellation confirmed, which is this right here. So I have this pay for cancellation as a handler for this for cancellation confirmed. And that basically takes some validated card, and that's used to pay a cancellation for whatever fee. And if that operation succeeds, then I set a flag that a fee has been paid. Okay. This fee paid probably can serve as an event, and that would then, I'm not going to get too ahead of myself. That probably can be translated into an event though. So what about this payment transactions? Well, the intent of this is to, if a user wants to view all the transactions that are on their account, it should consist of ride transactions as well as cancellation transactions. And there should be some details for that, in which the context is the ride. Okay. So this is account centric. So I can set this to scope for my account. And in the specification, I have these operations. Okay. Now there's a query transaction history, which is an operation that takes an account and outputs a transaction history. Okay. That transaction history is essentially a list of receipt types, which can be either a ride receipt or a cancellation receipt. Okay. Either of those are going to have a transaction ID, a ride, a fee, and a payment type. Okay. So now what? Well, let's try to get some TDD in here, test-driven development, and we'll have a setup section, and we'll have a test section, and we'll have a verify section like that. Okay. Now what? Well, this is going to be view model centric. Okay. So we're going to have let view model equals, and we're going to have a transactions view model. Okay. Then what? Well, that transactions view model, when it loads, it is going to, when that transaction view model loads, and maybe I need to call that, because I don't think there should be any IO in the constructor. So let's imagine that there's an initialize. Okay. That initialize should result in the view model dot transactions. And then that could be length should equal, how do I want to do this? View model dot transactions dot any should equal true, something like that. So when I load, or when I initialize this view model, I should have one or more transactions. That's it. Okay, so now what? Well, in the account.view models, we have add bank card and we have remove bank card. Okay. Well, let's add a transactions as a view model. And so I say transactions like this, .fs. And similar to its siblings, this transaction is going to carry the same namespace, account.view models, okay? And it is going to be called transactions. So type transactions, and we could do that equals, and then we just have a member foo, or member x.foo equals unit. Okay. So all this should pass right now. Control Shift B for compiling. And that should result, well, let's remove this bank card file. All that should result in at least our, well, we probably have to import that. So go over here and there is a, well, that's already in here. So this transaction should be recognized. No, it shouldn't be recognized because we need a account.view models. So I could say open account.view models, and now that transactions is recognized right here. Okay, but that transactions needs to have an initialize. So we can take this foo and turn that into initialize like that. Okay. And there should also be a member x.transactions, something like this right here, okay? And that is a property. So we can say with, and then we can say get equals, and then we can have lowercase transactions like this, okay? And then we can follow that up with and then and what? And sets, and within parentheses we have a value, and then we could say that that will equal our transactions that we mutate with our new value, like that, okay? In order for that to compile, we have a let mutable transactions like this, okay? And that should equal what? Well, that should equal ultimately an observable collection. This right here. That takes type what? Well, that takes a, how does this work? Is there a transaction type anywhere? Let me see. I have a transaction history, but that's, let me see. Isn't transaction it's a receipt type list? Okay. Um, yeah. You have a ride receipt and you have a cancellation receipt. Yeah. Well, okay. I don't really want to make that a type receipt type though on my view model because that's going to be, well, maybe not. I could always use a value converter. That value converter can go ahead and extract the receipt from this discriminated union. Okay. Well, I just feel like I don't want to go through all that. Now, if I go back here, we know that it's called a, we know it's going to be of type receipt, but we have a ride receipt and we have a cancellation receipt, two different types. Okay. So, well, how do I want to play this? Let's keep it simple, and we'll have a ride receipt. This right here. Um. Okay. Now what? Well, this is. I need to have parentheses here, and what else? Well, observable collection, ride receipt. I'm going to start off with that, but ultimately this needs to accommodate a cancellation receipt as well. But I'm going to try to chill for right now. Okay. Now what? Well, what's this complaining about? This is saying that a properties getter, etc., must have the same type. Transactions has a getter type of observable collection ride receipt, but setter has a unit transactions. Um, uh, like none of that's going. Oh, hold up. None of that's going to matter. Yeah, yeah. So, what is this really complaining about? Well, this value is a unit that takes, that's essentially a function that takes a unit and returns transactions. Okay. I'm not really quite understanding what the issue with this is. Oh, yeah, I know why. Because I have an uppercase transactions instead of this right here. Okay. So now that we have that, now what? Well, this initialize needs to load these transactions. In order to do that, we'll probably have like a query in here. Okay. And so then that initialize can be a query dot what? Query dot transactions. Okay. Now it's probably query dot ride transactions. And if we do that, then that's going to, we haven't implemented that yet, but that's going to result in a function. That function is going to pattern match on a OK, and that will be a T, or we could just say result, and that will basically, this should be ride transactions, right? Maybe I call it that, ride transactions, like that. And that's called ride receipts. Okay. And that ride receipts should be used down here. So we can say x dot transactions equals, then we can say ride receipts, something like that. And if it's none, then we'll have or not none. If it's error, then there's like a error message, right? And then we could broadcast that. Okay, we could broadcast that. So we would have like a message, then broadcast to what? And we could have some handlers in here, something like this. Okay. Okay. So we have that. Now what? Well, this query hasn't been defined yet. This write transactions, that obviously hasn't been defined because our query hasn't been defined. This is part of our account domain, and so in operations, so far we have a query transaction history. Okay, and that's the only thing we have right now, and that's kind of out of place because that should be closer to everything over here. And our query transaction history is over here. Okay. So what? Well, let's create a type, and this is going to be called, we're going to have a couple things. This is ride transactions. We'll also need a, how do I want to do this? Let's hold off on that right now. We do know that this query transaction history requires an account. That account is going to be injected into our view model. We can safely say that this is account. Okay. So we could say account dot query ride transactions, something like that. Okay. And well, it will look something like this. And so that may be, this query may look like this right here. And that is our account specification operations. So we can do open account specification operations like that. Okay. So that means that we could just have this right here. And that query transaction history, that's a result of a ride receipt error description. Oh, no, that's pay. Hold up. Where am I at? This this query transaction history just takes into account, and this needs to be a result of a transaction history, else an error description like that. Okay, T goes there. When we query, we're actually relying on an external system, hence a database that's more likely on a different server. And so, because that's IO related, IO isn't guaranteed to always be successful because, well, we're relying on other moving parts and connectivity and disk space and a whole bunch of other things. So, we should wrap it in a result type that's either going to be okay, meaning success, or error, meaning failure. So that's a little bit better than what we had. Okay. So now all this compiles almost, but then we have this transaction history is not compatible with observable collection. And let me see, this transactions was a observable collection. It's not transaction history. Okay. So we look at this in this transaction history. This is a receipt type list. Okay. Well, if we look at our transactions, maybe we just want to, we're querying maybe we don't want that type right now. So maybe this query transactions is really query ride receipts. Or you could call it transactions. It's whatever the business wants to call it. Or you could call that get ride transactions. You can call it whatever you want. Actually, like get better. I don't know. Ride transactions. This is going to be this transaction history. I'm not sure about that anymore. That is going to, I don't know. We could probably keep this. I'm not sure how long it's going to stay in this code base, but we're going to have a receipts equals, and we'll call this ride receipts. Ride receipts equals, and that's going to be a ride receipt list. Ride receipt list. Okay. And we could probably follow the same thing and say cancellation receipts. Cancellation receipts equals cancellation receipt list, something like that. Okay. Now what? Well, if we go back up here, our operations, when we query ride transactions, it's really ride receipts. So query ride receipts, something like that. Okay. it takes into account and returns a result of write receipts or an error. So here, query cancel receipts. And this is going to follow something similar, except this is going to be cancel receipts. Okay. It doesn't know what cancel receipts are. And I have a feeling that I'll call that cancellation receipts. Let's call it cancel receipts. Something like this. Okay. And that's done. Okay. So now what? Well, if we go back to our transactions view model, this is now called, what do we call this now? We call this query ride receipts, but now we should just call this query. Why would you call it query? Well, because now I want to introduce a new structure or a new record type that is going to be called query, and that query is going to have a ride receipts property, and that's going to be a ride. That's going to be a ride receipt list, and it's also going to have I'm missing the equal sign, and it's also going to have a cancel receipts property, and well, guess what? That's going to be a cancel receipts. That's going to be a cancel receipt list. Okay. That's called cancellation receipt, but I want that to be called a cancel receipt. So we back it up right here. Okay. And so then that gives us the right to back it up right here. Okay. And so that's the way I want it to look, like that. So now we have query write receipts, query cancel receipts. Okay. That's what we want so far. Our transactions.fs. Do we really want to call this transactions? I feel like we should probably be calling this receipts. Yeah, I think we should call this receipts. Something like that. Call you receipts. Something like that. Okay. And this would be receipts. Something like that. Okay. And we have our query right here that's recognized. So now you do what? When you say query dot ride receipts. Okay. And that should be okay. Our query dot ride receipts. I'm not doing this right. Takes a. I messed that up. Query dot ride receipts is that right there. Query dot cancellation or cancel receipts is this right here. Those are functions. Okay. And this ride receipts is a ride receipt list. Cancel receipts is a cancel. Where are we at? Cancel receipt. That. Okay. I have a habit of saying cancellation. Something like that. Okay. So we go back up here, and then we go to our receipts, and we can say x.receipts equals our ride receipts. Okay. Now what? Well, let me attempt to build this. And this transaction right here, that should probably should rename that. So I'm building right now, and it says that a ride receipt is not compatible with observable collection ride receipt. Okay. So now what? Well, let's look at this for a minute. For one thing, this needs to be a ride receipts like that. Okay. Now this right here can be renamed to receipts. Receipts. Okay. And honestly, I can't spell receipt. How do you spell receipt? Receipt. I've been spelling it like this. Okay, that's how you spell it. So this receipt is ride receipts, and that is a ride receipt list. What we want to do is we want to take this list and map it into a observable collection. Okay, so theoretically, we should be able to do a receipts pipes into a list dot map, and that would take a function that takes a receipt and it's going to yield what? We want to make this an observable collection. So I don't think that's it. Go back. This receipts should really be a new collection, new observable collection, should I say. New observable collection. And that should take receipts as an input. And well, I need to define the type, and well, that's going to be a ride receipt like that. Okay. Now, I don't see any red squigglies with that. Oh yeah, this new is disposable. All right, so I think that should be okay right there. Control Shift B. As I compile the solution, Visual Studio freezes, which is not good. And we have 6 errors. Let me see. This right here is going to be called receipts. Okay. Oh, this receipts now takes an account. So do I have a mock.sum account? I do. Okay. What else? Well, it takes a query. So I need to create a query. Well, we can say here, let query equal. And in here, I can say that this query is going to have, if I go to operations, remember it's ride receipts and cancellation receipts. So that query can have a ride receipts equal what? It's going to be something like, how do I do this? Right, receipts query, which I need to define. And the same thing over here for cancel receipts. That should be something like cancel receipts query, something like that. Okay, again, these two has not been defined yet, but that would go somewhere in here like that. And then I think there was a handlers in here that takes an error description and yields a unit. And this is a list of functions that take an error description as input, a list of unit. And so with that, I really don't have to do that much. I could just put in an empty list. Okay. So this query should be query. That's account.specification, not operations. Okay. And so let's organize that a little bit. And doesn't know what the write receipts query is. Okay. And the write receipts query is over here. Takes the account and returns write receipts. Okay, so we can say, how do we want to do this? This is where we want to visit our mock. And we want to implement this. Look at this. And we want to, there's more squigglies up here. I don't know about that one. Down here, we want to have a let ride receipt. Ride receipt query equal, and well, this is going to take, this is going to be a ride receipt. Where is that at? Let me go back to my language. Let me go to the operations. Query ride receipts is what it is. So in here, I'm going to have query ride receipts and then say that is equal to a function that takes in account as input and is going to return in this case, it's going to return a result. So we say, okay, a result of what? A result of ride receipts, which is essentially a list of ride receipts. So then we have, okay, a list of ride receipts. Well, maybe we can have a let some ride receipts equal. Okay, and that's going to be a ride receipt like that. And well, that ride receipt is a transaction ID ride fee payment. Now, why does that look familiar? I feel like I had this already. Now, what if I do a ride receipt like this? And it is that ride receipt right here is a function that takes a fee and a card. and it gives you this right here. Okay. So that, I think, is kind of what I'm looking for. So that ride receipt, let me see where this is being used at. Um, that's ride receipt fee card there. So what I want to say is, I want to say this pay ride is a result of a ride receipt. Okay. So I want to kind of do this right here where you have a how do I want to do this? You have okay, and then you have a ride receipt fee card in here. Now it doesn't know what a fee is, doesn't know what a card is. Can I say some fee? I can. Can I say some card? I can or not? This expression was expected to have type ride fee, but here it's type fee. Okay, can I have some ride fee? I can. Okay, this card, can I have some validated card like that? I can. Okay, so ride receipt query is going to basically take a function that takes an account, which we don't care about right now, and this is success. This is going to be assumed successful, and we're going to return a list of ride receipts as a result. Okay, so theoretically, I should be able to go to my transactions up here, and for ride receipts, I should be able to say mock. Come here. Mock dot, and then ride receipt query like that, and then I could say some mock dot some account like that. Okay, and I should be able to do something over here. It's very similar where I follow the convention, and I should be able to say mock dot cancel receipt query, and that's going to be some account. Um, so then I just have over here cancel, okay, and something like that, okay. And so I need to implement this cancel receipt query, but that should be kind of trivial because I already have this ride receipt query. Okay, so boom. And so here I have query cancel receipts. Okay. And so this would be a cancel receipt. Uh-oh. But that says cancellation receipt. Cancellation receipt. I want to change to a cancel receipt. So let's do that right here. And there's a cancellation fee. I want to rename that to cancel fee. Like that. Okay. So there's a cancel fee. And so down here, I want to have some cancel fee. That says some cancellation fee. And so I want to rename that to some cancel fee. But cancellation fee sounds okay. Mm, I'll leave it for right now. Okay. So Control Shift B. It's freezing Visual Studio. And if I go back to my transactions test, this should build. I have a number of errors. And core did not contain the namespace for module cancellation fee. Okay. So let me see what this means specifically. If I go to my output window and I use that, then I can say that's a FSC or F sharp compiler. This mock ride receipt query is still not being recognized. So let me go back here and let me attempt to build my test API. Test API doesn't build. Okay. Where do I start? Well, let's pick something random. This view model dot. This is receipts. Okay. We need to import system.link. So we can say, do that up here, say open system.link. Okay. What else? This says the module get right core from whatever it did not contain a namespace called cancellation fee. I don't know what that's about. Let me try to sync this again by building Control Shift B for building my solution. And I am going to look over here. And that doesn't matter to me. Our transactions is still tripping on ride query or ride receipt query, cancel receipt query, which is defined. Let me look at some other errors. I don't see anything else in here. Error duplicate definition of ride receipt query. Okay, that makes sense. So call this cancellation or cancel receipt query. Okay. Control Shift B. And also let me go back to my test. And Visual Studio is frozen, so I can't go back. Hold up. I'll go back over here. It's still tripping, but I'm going to go over here and call this file receipts. Okay. And well, no. Okay. The expression was expected to have query ride receipts, but here has a result. Okay. So over here, this query ride receipts should be let me look at this. It takes into account, and it should be a result of ride receipts. And Okay. I don't see anything wrong with that. I don't see anything wrong with this either. So, but this is saying that the expression was expected to have a query ride receipts, but here as a result. Well, this ride receipts over here is query ride receipts, and that has a result. Okay, so what are you really saying? This expression was expected to have type query cancel receipts, but here has type result cancel receipts. Okay. So what do you want me to do? Let me revisit this query up here. Query ride receipts takes an account and returns a result. Okay. Over here, you're complaining because you are, for ride receipts, you're implementing the query ride receipts. Okay. And this compiles right here. That compiles down here. So something tells me that this is fine. Account returns a result of ride receipts error. Like, so these functions right here appear to be good. If I go up here, query cancel receipts, that's a function. But then I go ahead and return a function that takes an account, and I do that. For here, the ride receipts is supposed to be a query ride receipts. And that's this right here, query ride receipts. This cancel receipts property is supposed to be of type query cancel receipts. And here, oh, am I doing, maybe I just don't need this right here. Oh, okay. Control Shift B. And everything builds. Okay. So if I go back to this up here, this payment transactions can just be called, we'll call this ride receipts. Okay. And if I attempt to run this test, debug selected test, what just happened? If I attempt to run this test, ride receipts, it's green. So this test passes. Okay. Now what? Well, that receipts was for ride receipts. Okay, the cancel receipts. Okay. And in here, I can have a we'll update this receipts to ride receipts. Okay. And there's a typo right here. Okay. And so I'll have come back. I'll have here a cancel receipts. And that's going to be an observable collection of, guess what? Cancel receipt. Okay. And let's initialize here. Well, let me add this cancel receipts over here. Okay. Okay. And you, my friend, are supposed to be cancel receipts. That's what we need to do. Okay. I like to have alignment. Yes, like that. Okay. And so over here, we can do the same convention and we can say that account.query, query what? Query cancel receipts. And you can say x dot what? Cancel receipts is observable collection, and we call that cancel receipt. Cancel receipts. Something like that. That needs to be uppercase R. And that looks okay for right now. And I like to have some alignment up here. Okay. Oh, you over here, you can back it up right there. Okay. And if I go back to my receipt over here, this will be a viewModel dot cancel receipts, something like this. Any should equal true. Okay. Control Shift B to build. And that should sync up. Everything builds. Okay. And when I attempt to run all the tests, cancel receipts should be included and it should be green. So now we have 23 tests. Everything passes. So these are the remnants of the test. Ride receipts, you have setup, you configure a query, you inject that query into your receipts view model, you initialize that view model, and then we verify that we have some ride receipts after we initialize our view model. Hence, during the initialization phase of our view model, we're loading in these receipts for both ride and query. Same thing with the cancel receipts test. It's the same thing. We initialize, we verify that we have some cancel receipts. Okay. And that's it. So let me clean up the imports up here. Test API doesn't appear to be used, or it's up here, it's being used. Okay, so that was just duplicate. So close. And up here, that looks fine. I could close you. This stuff is a Visual Studio bug. Close the mock file. This is the account.operations. This looks okay to me for right now. Close you. This getride.core common file, that looks fine. And this account.language, you look fine. Okay, do that. And so now we can check in and say that we added partial support for ride for what? Retrieving receipts. Then we could say i.e. ride and cancel, something like that. Support has 2 feeds in it. And commit all and push. And that's it. So now what? Well, I have this ride domain, I have account domain. I implemented certain operations such as a bank card transaction for when a ride completes, a bank card transaction for when a cancellation is confirmed. There's something else that I want to do. Maybe in the next video, we have a ride, right? And in that ride specific, in the ride.view models for en route, there's something that I would like to handle with this tracker, right? This tracking service. There's nothing stopping me with this tracking service where I can call initialize as many times as I want. And that initialize is going to call timer.start. And there's nothing stopping me from calling terminate as many times as I want, right? And that terminate calls timer.stop. So with that said, something that I'm considering is to work on the design of this tracking service where maybe I can implement like a state machine in regards to this tracking service so that there are certain operations that are no longer applicable based on the current state of the tracking service. So if, for example, if I initialize a tracking service, which ultimately the implementation details is it starts the timer, I shouldn't be able to start that timer again while the timer is already running, right? Translated, this tracking service implementation, this tracking service class has opportunities for accidental execution issues or accidental method executions that shouldn't occur based on a given state. And so that's something that I think I want to tackle in the next video. I don't have any ideas yet on how I'm going to accomplish that, but that's something in the next video that I just want to explore. So I'm Scott Nimrod, and this is a long-running code kata of me building a Get Ride app. Not sure if I'll actually get to completion, but basically me building up that muscle memory for functional programming, specifically F#. And this is a mobile app that I'm building. So all this is demonstrating my understanding of domain-driven design, as well as this idea that I'm playing around with specification as a library. And all this is on GitHub. So you go to bismunger/getride on GitHub, and that's it. So I think I checked everything in. I'm out. Adios. Peace. How do I kill this? Stop.